haven't? Welcome. So what does your logo say about your business? Anybody can design a logo, can't they? Easy. And these are some of the answers that I sometimes hear. I'll get my daughter to do it because she does art at school. Or my VA says that they can do it in Canva. Good luck with that. Or I can buy a logo online for £16. Ooh. Or I'll just find some clip art and do it myself. So when you get answers like that to questions like, can you design your own logo? Why would somebody pay me £725 for a company logo? That's my top price. So let's find out why. So first of all, what's a logo? So a logo is it's a brand mark that designates ownership. Usually it's a company, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a product. Sometimes it's a campaign or a competition or service, whatever it is. This is mostly talking about company logos. And what a logo needs to do is identify your company in a way that's memorable, recognizable, and by doing so, it should reflect your core business values, which needs to inspire trust and convey your superiority, because you're better than your competitors, and that's what you want to tell people. Why is a logo important? Because your logo represents you when you're not there. And people make judgments about things very, very quickly, usually within a couple of seconds. And if people look at your logo and think it looks dated or homemade or a bit off the shelf like a template, or if it's just confusing, that is what your business feels like to them as well. Right, a little bit of science, first thing in the morning. Semiotics. Semiotics is the study and language of signs. And the good news is you don't have to understand how semiotics works, but you all use it all the time without even thinking about it. So semiotics consists, well, it's very, very dense and boring actually, but the simplified version is it consists of two things: a signifier, which is the form that something takes, and a signified, which is basically the meaning that's attributed to that thing. And most of this attribution of meaning is done subconsciously, so you don't know you're doing it. As an example, right? So this is a signifier, a red rose. So if you're not on mute, just shout out what that signifies to you. What does a red rose mean?
Love.
Anybody else?
Vampires.
Vampires.
Yeah.
I must admit, I haven't got vampires on my list. But
Deadheading. Deadheading.
Lancashire.
Lancashire.
right. Okay. Well, that's. I've got a few. So it's a rose, obviously. It's a flower. But yes, love. We had Lancashire. We had. It's also the symbol for England rugby. It's also the symbol for the Labour Party. It's also the symbol for Valentine's Day, and many other things like vampires. Whichever weirdo said that. Why is all this important? Well, because all logos contain a mixture of fonts, graphics, and words, and each of those is a thing, and those things have they all have elements that signify many different things. And the skill of your logo designer is knowing how to make sure that your logo signifies appropriately the correct meanings for your business and avoids all the wrong ones. And it's very easy to get logos wrong. So there's a few. Things like the detail doctor, the graphics got no detail in them. The one in the middle on the top, it's meant to be a pagoda, but in front of a sunset, looks like something completely different. Real Tech is a high-tech technology company with a graphic that looks like it's made in 1995.
Yeah.
The one bottom left, do anybody know who that is?
It looks familiar.
It's Uber.
No.
That's Uber's logo. What is it? It's meaningless. Out of the rubbish. So yeah, it's very easy to get it wrong, even if you're a very large company. So if you are looking at your logo and you want to know whether it's actually working, here's an effective logo checklist. Logos need to do 5 things. So they need to be appropriate to your business values. They need to be simple. They need to be distinctive, timeless, and flexible. And we'll quickly go through those one by one. So appropriateness. Colors, shapes, and typefaces all signify certain things, as we've mentioned. So red, for example, the symbol, universal symbol of passion, anger, and excitement, amongst other things. White stands for things like hygiene, purity, and innocence. That's why I see a lot of white cosmetic packaging. Helvetica Bold, typeface, even though it's nearly 80 years old, it's still seen as modern, corporate and business-like. Whereas Comic Sans is the opposite. It's childish, it's frivolous, it's a sign of an amateur, in my opinion. So you wouldn't use Comic Sans in a logo for anything if you've got any sense. And there's a couple of logos that have been redesigned in Comic Sans to give you the general idea of how terrible they look. Simple. Second thing is simple. Your logo, you only have a few seconds to make a first impression. So if your logo is too complicated, people won't waste their time trying to work out what it is. So if you're going to may have a logo, you can use up to 3 symbols. You don't have to use 3, but use up to 3 symbols, which would be a symbol, a word mark, and a strap line. So there's Apple's original logo on the left. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that is atrocious. It lasted a year and they moved on to the one on the right. And then eventually they got rid of the word Apple and then they got rid of the stripes. So they got simplified and simplified and simplified and simplified and simplified and simplified. I'll take questions at the end, Dennis. Distinctive.
That's telling him.
Sorry?
That's telling him.
Yeah. Your logo needs to be distinctive. It needs to be memorable and unique. And you do not want your business to look like somebody else's business. So that's why we avoid using visual cliches like the ones below. And the clip art, those are all clip art. You can buy those logos online. They cost you 25 quid. And all you've got to do is change the words. And then you've got a logo. The trouble is your logo looks like another 150, 200 logos in your region, whatever it is. So you do not want to look like somebody else. You want to look unique. And timeless. Your logo needs to be timeless. Unless you're a fashion brand, you need to avoid having a trendy logo because you don't want to have to refresh it every other year because it's gone out of fashion, because that's kind of the opposite of what brand awareness and brand recognition is all about. So, for example, the Coca-Cola logo there, that's the 1887 version on the left and the 2007 version on the right. They're all practically the same. And finally, I think this is finally, your logo needs to be flexible. You do not know when you're designing a logo what it's going to be used for or where it's going to be used. So obviously it's going to be used on simple things like a website and stationery, but it could end up 5 meters wide on the side of a building, or it could be a centimeter wide on a pen. It can be embroidered, it could be engraved onto glass, it could be put on colored backgrounds and black backgrounds. You do not know. So you need to be flexible. And that means you need to design multiple versions of a logo. At the very least, you want a color one, black and white one, and a white out reversed version. You might also need horizontal and vertical options. If you've got a wide or a narrow logo, sometimes they're not going to fit into the format you're using. So back to the original question. Anybody can design a logo, can't they? Well, creating a logo that highlights your company's uniqueness, superiority, and special qualities requires extensive research, design expertise, and years of experience. And your final logo needs to convey all of that in a couple of seconds. So that's why I charge £725 for a company logo. A little bit about me. Been designing logos, branding, and graphics for 34 years now. I know I don't look old enough. You might recognize one of those logos on there, Lee. That's your logo. I just designed that.
Yes, I'm very, very pleased with it.
Jolly good, thank you. I set up Keefomatic 8 years ago to help small businesses stand out and improve their branding and communication. You won't be able to read all of that, but my logo design service is on my website if you're interested. I work on 10 logo projects per year because they take 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And I tend not to just try and rush them. And I offer 3 design packages with prices ranging from £445 to £725. I'm looking for companies who understand the value that design can bring to their businesses, companies who view design as an investment and not a cost. And finally, business owners unsatisfied with their current branding, who are looking for a new direction and fresh ideas. Thank you very much for listening. If I have questions now, Yanis.
Do you know what? That looking at that Apple one, you know, Steve Jobs thought that up, didn't you? I mean, he was off his tits most of the time, wasn't he? Early on. I mean, when you look at that, he was a right old hippie, wasn't he? You can almost imagine that he just drew that sitting under a tree himself. It's
I don't think he drew it, but yeah, it's Isaac Newton with a little quote in so small you can't read it.
Yeah.
And it goes underneath the thing that you can't read it under there and then back under here again. It's ridiculous.
Do you know what you do, Keith, is invaluable. You're right. It amazes me how much value you get from talking to somebody like you. I mean, I remember back, oh God, years ago, I started a car phone business with a friend of mine where I left Vodafone, and we got a guy to do a logo. The very first shot, it was all quite rushed. And my partner he didn't see the point in spending a load of money getting a brand designed. And we didn't really have any idea of what we wanted it to look at. So he just paid a guy 150 quid, gave the guy the name. And within a few hours, he came round with a couple of drawings. And we said, that one. Well, I didn't say it, my partner did say that one. Paid us 100. I mean, that was 1990, it was 150 quid, worst 150 quid we ever spent. About I met a guy a few months later who does what you do, and I was sitting and having a chat with him in a pub, and I said, come and talk to myself and my partner. And we sat down, and he asked us a shitload of questions, wanted to know about us, our background, what we wanted from the business, and all sorts of. He asked loads of questions. I mean, I can't remember half of them. And then he produced a bunch of drawings. I mean, a whole load of drawings, and then narrowed them down for us before he bought them, and gave us a choice of something like six of them. He said, "This is what I think your logo. If I don't know if you agree, but they were brilliant, and they were great because above all the shops, like you said, they could be large, they could be small, they could be on letterhead, and it was perfect. It was only black and blue and white, and it was just perfect. And we could, it was just clean, a bit like the car warehouses now, because their original logo was shite. It was literally a warehouse with a car in front of it, and it was crap. I mean, it was rubbish. And we paid the guy at the time, again, that was probably about 91. We paid him like 500 quid, which was a lot of money, then. But better than the 150. We got value out of him, but we didn't get any value out of the 150 quid guy.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to be said for paying professionals to do it properly.
Yeah, and he thought about everything. He thought about everything like you've just done, and it was well worth it. I mean, you felt the money wasn't important. He could have said £1,000, and I would have paid it because he was worth it, And then we used him for other stuff, like everything. After that, actually, while we had the shop going. But,
it's most of my logo design sort of service now is based on service that I used to offer when I was part of a design agency. So it's aimed at a professional level, and I learned a lot from designing for clients who are a lot bigger than the clients I have now. Because they have higher standards, and some designers, when they come out of that agency environment and start operating on a small business level, say, sod the standards, I'm going back to designing some old rubbish. But I don't do that. I keep the standards that I used to use for likes of Volkswagen and people I used to design for, because once I don't know, that's just the way I am. It's about attention to detail as far as I'm concerned, and there's also getting things right. And like you said about somebody would give you like 6 or 7 or 8 drawings. Yeah, I'm experienced enough now to get that down to 3. Yeah. But I will probably design 10 and get rid of 4, or get rid of 6 myself or 7 myself before the client sees anything. Yeah. So that's me.
It makes you wonder what Jeff Bezos was thinking when he asked for. I think he paid 150 quid for that phallus that he's got as a logo. It sort of carries through his business, but that looks like a rubbish logo, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but it looks like they knocked that up in an afternoon.
Which one are we talking about? Was it Amazon?
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon's logo is actually quite clever.
Do you think?
It's simple. It's simple, but it's clever. Because the little smile thing, the arrow that goes under, goes from the letter A to the letter Z. So the idea is you get everything from A to Z.
I've never spotted that.
Yeah. So it's quite clever. And obviously they've used that device for their delivery service, and they just get rid of all the words that have the smile, and you know exactly who it is. So yeah, have a look next time you see it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, carry on. Go on, Charlotte, after you.
Sure. I was just
carry on.
2 things. One, I was going to echo your sentiments on Canva, Keith. It's so interesting. There's so many. I love Canva. I absolutely love Canva, and it's the most wonderful tool when used correctly. And also as well, for business owners, we've seen all these wonderful free tools available to us, which we should use. But a logo should never be designed on Canva. It just shows the power of going to somebody who has the expertise. And also, things like people don't realize that, if you design on Canva, you're not going to get all the formats that you need to resize. It won't be the right resolution. So if you blow it up, it's gonna pixelate. And also as well, people don't realize that some of the fonts aren't commercially available and you shouldn't be using them. So there's all these things actually that are underlying, which an expert knows. So it's so important that and like you said, Keith, it's the face of our business. It's the first thing that I say on social media, look at that's your visual. That's it. People should be able to look at that and go, oh, that's such and such. Oh yeah, that's such and such. And it's really, really important that story is told.
Yeah.
A part of that is through your logo and your branding. So I actually say to people, no, Don't do like go and see somebody who does it, you know, properly.
The number of
But
clients
yeah.
that I've had recently that they've come to me and they said, oh, we just set up our business at the start of COVID and we had a logo designed and now we need to change it because it's no good. And the number of people that was, oh yeah, we got a friend to do it and they did it in Canva, or somebody was cool and did it, or whatever it is. And it don't last very long because they kind of, once they start to use it, they just realized this doesn't work. You know, this is too complicated, or like you say, it's too low res. I can't do things with it. I can't blow it up. Then I have to end up redrawing a lot of people's logos because they haven't got a large high resolution version. As soon as I want to do anything in print, that logo is no good. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've just got one more question, Keith. What's the most unusual business you've worked with? So what's the most unusual request you've ever had, or unusual business that sticks in your mind?
Well, back in the day when I first started out, and this is going back into the late 80s, early 90s, we shared an office with a graphic design company, and their speciality was designing the video labels for porn videos. And so they didn't even have like a scanner or anything in those days. So they'd take magazines to the local news agents and they'd photocopy them, cut them out, and make montages for the covers. So that was quite funny. Yeah, so that's probably the oldest, and it was right at the very beginning.
Mm.
Can I just ask? You mentioned fonts, Charlotte, Keith. So people trademark fonts.
Oh yeah,
trademark fonts out there.
Absolutely, yeah. If you go onto a website like something like My Fonts, this is where you go to buy your licensed version of fonts. A lot of fonts these days are freely available because if you subscribe to Adobe software, then you get access to a thing called Typekit, and that comes with hundreds of fonts, and they're all, as long as you're still paying Adobe's monthly fee, you get access to Typekit. Adobe used to give away fonts with all their software on CDs back in the day. I've got CDs and CDs full of fonts which are useless now. Google also do web fonts which are perfectly usable on printers and stuff. So but yeah, fonts are all copyrighted.
I didn't realize that. I just thought that was just out there, you know, it comes with whatever.
I mean, I know I'm probably running out of time now, but I have done, when I do logo design, sometimes I will say to the client, look, I really want to use this font, but we've got to buy it. And then people go, buy a font? What do you mean buy a font? And sometimes they're like 20 quid, sometimes they're like 200 quid. It depends on they call the foundry, because they use these old-fashioned names like they were making them out of metal. They're not, they're all digital. But yeah, they can be very expensive. But if you can persuade somebody, you know, that this is going to be the look of your business, you're going to use this for years and years to come, 200 quid, nothing, is it really? So yeah.